Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Clive Hancock coming at you live from East London. Tonight, we will be talking about Olivia Lung's new book, Trip to Echo Springs. In this book, she travels across the pond and writes about 6 influential American authors. First off, we'll begin with Tennessee Williams. Tennessee Williams was born in Columbus, Missouri in 1911. Both of his parents were heavy drinkers and they were often fighting. Along with this, his sister Rose had a prefrontal lobotomy very early in life. What a tough one. His most influential trip of his life was in his late teenage years when he went with his grandfather on a cruise across all the capitals of Europe. On this trip, he began his alcoholism with a large amount of intake of champagne when in Paris. His famous works included The Grasse Ménagère, A Streetcar Named Desire, Cat on Its Hot Tin Roof. Tennessee's social life and alcoholism. Tennessee was outwardly gay, he struggled with depression, and near the end of his career he became very lazy and barely worked. After the death of his partner, Frank Merlau, he drifted slowly to death through abuse of alcohol. He died of choking when really he was surrounded by 2 empty bottles of wine and barbiturates. Moving on, another influential author was F. Scott Fitzgerald. Born Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1896. He came from a reasonable amount of wealth and he even attended Princeton. He marries his gold digger wife Zelda in 1919 after This Side of Paradise made it big, because before it she wouldn't take him. They had a daughter Scotty, born in 1921. His famous works included The Great Gatsby, The Beautiful and the Damned, and 10 Days the Night. Fitzgerald wrote alcoholism. His wife Zelda was absolutely bonkers. She went into a sane asylum 3 different times in 1930, 1932. She eventually went into Highlands Hospital post Fitzgerald's death and died because the hospital burned down. The fire escapes were wooden. Constant stress was weighing down on Fitzgerald. He was raising Scotty as a single parent. He suffered from insomnia, and he was nearly poor, and alcohol was his only release. He dies in 1940 of a heart attack, when really his liver was failing. A great friend of his was Ernest Hemingway. He was born in Oak Park, Illinois in 1899. He had 3 wives, Pauline, Martha, and Mary. His close friend was Fitzgerald. He was a member of the American expatriate community in Paris and the Riviera. They even had a trip to Lyon where they went down and they got lost multiple times because of their massive amount of drinking. Most well known for his works in A Farewell to Arms, The Old Man and the Sea, and The Fifth Column, describing the Spanish Revolution. He travelled around a lot and had homes in Key West, Florida, France, and even Cuba. He won a Nobel Peace Prize after his The Fifth Column. Hemingway had a slow path to alcoholism. His tolerance was excessively high. He drank up to 30 beers a day, but didn't consider alcohol intake. What a wanker. He had very little knowledge of the actualities of alcoholism. He believed that with oxygen, the alcohol exited his body. Very interesting. He developed hemochromatosis, the inability to metabolize iron that accumulates in mental and physical deterioration. But in actuality, he died from suicide. What kind of man has such a beautiful life and blows it away by blowing his head off with a 12 gauge? Absolutely tremendous, I tell you. John Cheever. He was born in Quincy, Mass. He was known as Chekhov of the suburbs. He was a writer for the New York Times, primarily writing about short stories, even though he was upstaged by the 9 stories of J.D. Salinger. His father was an alcoholic, and it largely influenced his childhood. He was married to Mary Cheever, although